Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Claddercast, episode 60. I'm Steve Tudor.
And I'm Andy Lewis.
And that silence means we're missing someone.
There's a man down. Where is he? Have we lost him again? I mean, you know, he's quite easy to lose.
We checked down the back of the sofa.
I have, actually. He's not there. I found a quid, though.
Hey! Everyone's a winner.
Boom! I would say I could buy myself an ice cream, but not for a quid these days.
Oh, God, no. So, yes, Mr. Cage is not with us tonight. There's some shindig going on. It's a soiree of some description.
Soiree, yeah.
Which means he can't join us tonight.
Do you reckon he's trying to increase his social standing so he can acquire himself a manservant?
You reckon that's what it is, do you?
Yes, it is. He's clearly joining some kind of society.
Ah, I see.
Maybe Arrakis is teaching him something.
I should say, what's wrong with your hand there, Andy? It looks like you've got tattoos all over your fingers.
Oh, yeah, the blue. It's
Yes.
Actually, to be honest, this looks kind of better than it has done over the last few days. I have been giving it the full Monty.
What?
Now, that's Monty Don, not the film. I haven't been getting my tackle out. I'm off this week, so I've been spending most of it in the garden because I am now old, middle-aged, and own a house, so I have to do these things. It is the law. And I've been doing a lot of landscape gardening and doing up various areas of it. And today I have finished oiling my dick because it was old and tired, and it seems that the previous owners of this house didn't really understand what maintenance means. So Alora and I have spent the last two and a half days basically just sort of titivating the deck with quite a lot of deck oil, actually. Ooh. And if anyone's seen the spoof New Zealand Schaefer's Dick Sealant adverts, they'll know exactly what I mean. But it's looking quite good now. But the problem is, it means I've spent essentially a day and a half on my hands and knees, just hunched over, just painting 35 square meters twice of wood. So that hurts. I've been building a wood store this afternoon, so lots of screwing and nailing and pulling wood apart and bits and bobs. What else have I been doing? Making a grotto. That was fun.
A grotto?
Yes. Well, I don't know if Amanda saw it on Facebook. I don't know if you have. But we finally finished the sort of shed, gravelled area at the bottom of our garden now. So we've got a nice fire pit area with a bench, and it's all sort of painted to match. And we've put some lights all the way around it now, so it looks like some kind of... it looks very good, actually. I'm quite impressed with the finish. It's very cosy, so I just need some fire now.
What you don't know, folks at home, is Andy's backyard is basically at 45 degrees.
It is, yes, it's on a hill. Oh yes, I've been sorting out the terracing as well, because the previous terracing has been, as aforementioned, poorly maintained in the past, so I had to rip it all out and replace the lot. So that's been fun. But it does look a lot better now. The other half of the garden I won't talk about, because that is basically a wasteland. I wouldn't be surprised if I found a vault dweller in it somewhere. But the plan for that for the next 12 months is a waterfall.
Ooh.
I know. That's going to require quite a lot of planning now. And a big pump. To get up said 45-degree hill. There is a drop from the top where I think the head's going to be to the bottom of the waterfall is probably going to be about a 2 to 3 metre drop.
Oh, blimey.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a big waterfall.
I mean, I was kind of half joking when I said 45 degrees, but it's not far off, actually, is it?
It's not, no, it's really steep. It really is, yeah, it is pretty steep. So we'll see how that goes. I shall obviously keep you updated, because I'm sure listeners of a board gaming podcast want to know what's going on in my garden.
Fair. Yeah, I'm sure they're fascinated. Hanging on every word.
Say, the good thing is it's all now almost ready for summer. And the weather this week has been particularly good, so might have a barbie at the weekend.
It's supposed to get even better this next couple of days as well.
Exactly. So I wanted to get all of that done, get the fire pit and the barbie ready, so job done. We're on track. Unlike most projects I'm involved in.
And since he can't defend himself, unlike any of John's projects.
Oh, God, yes, they are. Behind schedule, I think, is an understatement.
I think he finally finished that magic mirror.
Oh, God, yeah.
So it's taken him 2 years.
Oh, goodness, yes.
We'll let him discuss that on the next one. But when you do buy your pump for your waterfall, make sure you don't buy a cheap Chinese knockoff.
Why do you say that? Are you suggesting that it might not be quite up to scratch?
Yes, because I bought a cheap Chinese knockoff this week, and I brought it to yours because you have a genuine version of this item. I did a side-by-side comparison. Now, this item is the board game Terraforming Mars. Now, I will admit, I went into this eyes open. I saw a listing on eBay for about £24 for a copy of Terraforming Mars and went, that's probably not legit.
Probably.
So, two things that came into my mind, I sort of thought there was a special offer on eBay that weekend where if you spent over £20, you got £15 off. It was something stupid like that.
Hell,
no, £10 off. Sorry, £10 off. So it was a £15, and the listing showed all the wooden extras you can get from various companies. So it had the wooden trays that you put your tokens on, and it had little wooden boxes and a wooden insert. So I thought, you know what? I'll buy it. If it's not genuine, well, then it's not genuine. We can go for the whole returns process. But if it comes with these wooden stuff, well, then I can chuck the actual hooky copy of the game because I've got all the wooden extras ready for Terraforming Mars. It turned up, wrapped in bubble wrap, no cardboard box around it, just bubble wrap in a bag, delivered from China.
I'm surprised it got here in one bit, to be honest, in that state.
It's a bit dinted in the corner, and there's no sign of any wooden inserts or wooden trays or anything like that at all. To give you an idea of the warning signs that we kind of knew this was going to be hooky right from the start is, number one, it was far too cheap. I mean, £20 to £25 these things are going for when it should, RRP, I think it's about £60 for Terraforming Mars, isn't it?
67, I believe.
But you can generally get it for about £45.50 from most online places.
I think I got mine for 48, and it's about the cheapest I've seen it legit.
Yeah.
Which is still bloody overpriced, but never mind.
And the other thing was, of course, this seller was based in China. The other one was the description was a bit weird in places.
What did they say? He said something like Monopoly or something.
As soon as I realised that it was, it came to me, there's no wooden bits in there, and I thought, well, this is obviously a fake. I thought I'd give them, maybe it's not, for, to a little bit of benefit of the doubt for a moment. Turned up, it's like, obviously a fake. So I emailed them back and went, well, all the wooden bits are missing that you've got advertised on your eBay listing. So all the photographs show these wooden bits. It's not there. And I think this is fake. And the reply came back in his card, kind of garbled English, which basically said, everything is there to play tabletop chess game. I think you quite understand even the complaint I'm making here. So I said, I put a couple of replies and going, look, no, this is blatantly fraudulent because you've got images on your website of bits which aren't in there. And the same, basically kept making the same reply. No, everything is needed there to play a game. Like, well, that's not the point. You've got stuff shown, isn't there? And they kept saying, and I think this is fake. And they didn't address the fake at all.
Well,
didn't even acknowledge its existence. So open day query with eBay, and fair dues, eBay refunded me within seconds of opening the query.
Wow, that's pretty quick.
Well, because they give you, I think it says 14 days. So basically, eBay and PayPal give you a few days to amicably sort it out amongst yourselves. And you have to wait this amount of time before you can raise the proper complaint. But I raised the complaint, and I'm not kidding. It was like 15 minutes later, I had an email saying you've been refunded.
Wow. That's pretty good. Fair play. I can see it's taken pride of place on the shelf just above your head behind you.
It is actually behind me, isn't it? Yeah. Just where it fits. I haven't got around to getting rid of it yet. Well, and it's interesting, actually, we compared it, didn't we? So I brought it to yours because you've got a proper copy, and we compared them side by side. And to the casual observer, there was very little difference between the copies.
True, actually. Just as a quick glance, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It's only really literally because they were side by side, you could see the differences. It was quite like one of those sort of old puzzle spot the difference games. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, the major differences that you could spot were the cubes, the plastic cubes that come with it, have all got a slightly concave. I can never remember. Concave surfaces. Now, what this is that I know what that is. That's cheap injection molding. Because what happens is the plastic cools too quick and it shrinks. So all these things, and the golden cubes have been chipped in the corner. You can tell that the flaky paint is gone. The rest of it, the colours are just slightly more washed out, and it is slightly. You do have to compare them side to side to see where the colours have gone. But the big difference is the cards.
Yes.
Again, the colours are slightly different. Interestingly, the dodgy copy actually has thicker cardstock than the original.
It is actually, yeah. It's a shame you can't reprint the original on the thicker cardstock.
Yeah. But the major difference is there are actually printing errors on the hooky copy, where every so often the name of the card, an R is missing. So instead of the card being geothermal power, it's geoth malpower.
It's almost like somebody's got that R and scribbled it out. It's like they got the Tipex gun out, because it's just a white box, isn't it?
It's a white box, yeah. It's weird. I do wonder why that error's crept in, because everything else is like a perfect copy.
It is weird. I wonder if there's some kind of weird ASCII translation issue from Chinese to European alphabet when it comes to printing, and it just can't. What's the word? Not translate, but it can't.
I wonder whether they've got it from the PDFs.
Sort out R. Yeah, possibly.
Because I was thinking this through. How could they have had this problem where this, and it is just the character couldn't get through. So I was thinking, how have they copied them? Well, if you'd scanned the cards, that wouldn't have happened. So I wonder whether they've actually got hold of the original printing PDFs and something has gone wrong in the file. But just that letter's missing, which suggests they've got hold of actually the original printing files for this.
Which is quite impressive. I just got the dot matrix out. It's probably, actually, to be honest, you're probably close to the truth there, and it just can't resolve. That's the word I'm looking for. Resolve the R from whatever set they're using. I don't know, just a guess.
Yeah, just had the wrong font installed or something daft like that.
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah,
everything is needed to play chess game. It's fine.
Yes, there is play chess game, but it's obviously a massive issue here because if you go on eBay and on Amazon, I mean, eBay has got about 20 different sellers selling these hooky copies of Terraforming Mars. Amazon, somebody pointed a link to one on Amazon this week where they'd actually changed the description, and it was called like reduced quality Terraforming Mars game. Suggesting it was some kind of factory second rather than a hooky copy.
Wow. That's one way to get around it, I suppose. No, it's not been ripped off. No. Oh well.
Yeah, so be wary. If the price of a game looks too good to be true, it probably is, or be careful of who you're buying it off. Like buying it off eBay, well, it's a bloody Wild West out there. Anyway, but Amazon...
It's west of the Wild West, I would suggest.
But buying off Amazon, I've heard, if you buy actually direct from Amazon, so when you order it, it says fulfilled by Amazon, generally means it's legitimate stock. It's when it's the third-party sellers you need to be careful on Amazon. And you also need to be... I don't know if they fixed this issue, but there was a problem where third-party stock was all getting mixed up. So, like, say if I bought a game from a gaming shop and a Chinese rip-off merchant had put all these in as well, there's no guarantee which stock it was coming from, which bucket.
Yeah, they just kind of, that'll do.
Yeah.
Out it goes. Yeah, sure.
Because it's all got the same barcode on it,
Oh, well. Interesting.
It's interesting how much effort they've gone to copy something which, even though we love this hobby, we know it's growing and growing and growing, it's interesting how much effort they've gone to copy something which is still niche.
Yeah, I guess because TM is quite a relatively big game, it's very popular.
Yes.
As much as I have it, I personally don't really see why everyone goes berserk over it. It's okay, don't get me wrong, I don't dislike it. But I would say there are probably more popular games out there to copy. I mean, things like Ticket to Ride, Catan. I mean, Catan must be a doddle to copy. They probably already do, I don't know.
Well, probably,
because there's not really anything complicated in there. It's just a bunch of cards, some hexes, and a little wooden meeple thing for the little robber. And that's it, or a couple of dice. And they're not exactly hard to come by. So I'd have thought Catan would be an obvious target. Risk, Monopoly, I'm sure they probably are.
But saying that, I mean, the Kickstarter's just gone up for the latest expansion. is Terraforming Mars Turmoil. And we are at Wednesday night here, so it's about 4 or 5 days before we publish this podcast. It's already got 11,000 backers for an expansion.
Whoa! Yeah, I looked at it because I've got TM and I've got, I think it's 3 expansions. I've got the extra board. I've got Venus Next and Prelude I've got, or is that the expansion now, the new one? I've got 3 of them anyway. As you can see, I've played them to death because I don't even know what they're called. And I looked at the price of the Kickstarter, and I think, is it $32? Something like that?
34.
34. Which, okay, is half the price of the original game, admittedly. But given that I've paid something like, I think it was about 20 quid, 25 quid for a couple of the expansions, and to be fair, they're not exactly generous in their content. I remain sceptical as to what Stronghold, isn't it, that do them?
Yeah.
Are going to throw into this. So, and it's almost certainly going to hit shelves anyway. So, I really don't see the point. It comes back to the issue you had a couple of casts ago about, do I back? What the hell was it that you were thinking of backing? Oh, Eclipse 2, second edition of Eclipse. So, it's going to hit the shelves. We know it's going to hit the shelves. So, what's the point?
I mean, I had a similar issue. We talked on it a few episodes back, and it's still on Kickstarter, which is the Kingdom Rush Kickstarter. And I am still umming and ahhing about that, though I think John's backing it, so at least one of us will be getting it. Because I looked back at Chronicles of Crime, which was one of Lucky Games' previous Kickstarters, and I looked back, and the cost to back it on Kickstarter is exactly the same to buy the game online now in retail.
Ooh.
So I think you got some stretch goals and some extra bits and bobs, but for the base game, it's the same price. And it was like, well, why should I stump my money up front when I've got to try and budget it rather than buying when I've got the money, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, okay, you could argue, well, they kind of need the money to get the thing off the ground, which is fair enough.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
But you would think, I mean, we've addressed this, I think we've talked about it in the past, that what is the incentive in order to back the game? Do you get money off? Do you get a few extra bits and bobs that are nice? Do you get it faster than Joe Schmo off the street? Whatever it is that gives you the incentive to actually bother backing it, surely, rather than, it's exactly the same as the shelf copy and it's the same price. Why do I want to back that then?
Yeah. And interestingly, you said retail price for Terraforming Mars is £67.
I think so. It's around that.
It's around that, because I remember, but I thought it was 66, but that was when it first came out. The second pledge level on the expansion includes Terraforming Mars plus the new expansion. So and it is £61.
That's pretty good, actually.
And if you want to get all the expansions in, £72.
Yeah, I looked at that and thought, you bastards, I've paid more than that already.
Yeah.
So that's actually pretty good value.
It is, isn't it?
That is really good. Does anyone want to buy Terraforming Mars? I might back that. No. Yeah, that is actually pretty good. I'll take back. See, there's an incentive to back it. Massive discount. Go for it. That's worth doing.
I should look at that in the future. Well, I might have to look into that. Damn it, I've got too many Kickstarters. Too many Kickstarters going on.
I've had a bit of a drought for a while.
Oh, I've backed 2 today.
I noticed. Kickstarter grassed you up.
Which leads us onto the news.
Indeed, and the first news item is a, direct link. We slide comfortably into the pants of about 18 months ago, where Steve and I played Anachrony with Alora and got roundly beaten. But David Turksey has just launched the Kickstarter for its expansion, Fractures of Time, I think it's called, isn't it?
I believe so.
Which I had been told by David. I had a conversation with him late last week, and he said, yes, it's launching on Monday. And I said, to be honest, that'll be, I'm pretty confident that'll be, first day funding. And he said, to be honest, we're hoping for first hour. And looking at the amount of money it's already made, I believe him.
Yes.
I don't know exactly how it did, but it's well funded. So, but we loved it, and I'd completely forgotten about it until about half an hour ago, when Kickstarter grassed Steve up and said, yeah, Steve's backed this. I thought, oh, crap, yeah, I'd better back that as well. So presumably you've just backed the expansion.
No, I've backed the expansion plus. Because there's 3 pledge levels. There's the expansion, which is just the expansion in a box. There's the new swanky full-on edition, which I assume is the one you've backed.
Maybe.
Which is basically everything that came in the last Kickstarter, so the game, the miniatures, and a big box, and then a big box to keep the expansion in, so it's all in one big box.
So you've basically got the expansion and the bigger box.
Yes.
Right.
So the middle tier, so it all goes in one big box, basically.
Now that is convenient.
It was like an extra 10 quid, I think, for the big box. And I was like, that's a bit expensive, but at the same time, I'm really annoyed if that's off in a separate box to its own, aren't I?
You see, you say that it's expensive, but I have, I've backed the rest of Deep Madness, which is hopefully going to be late this year. They've done something similar and basically produced a box, or rather 2 boxes, I might add, to store all of the stuff in. Massive.
It's not
basically.
A box. It's an ISO shipping container is what it is, isn't it?
It is. It's genuinely, I think, basically, they've produced 2 boxes, each the size of Gloomhaven's box, to store all this stuff in, because there's so much of it. Now, they've given one away with the most recent campaign, but they added another one on, to store all of the extra miniatures and all this sort of stuff, if you went, balls deep like I did last time.
Yeah.
And that was £40 just for the box.
Oh, Jesus.
I say box, it's more like a coffin. It's huge. Yeah, I know. I thought, well, I'm going to have to. At this point, I'm all in, aren't I? I can't really back out now.
That's it. It's a sunken cost fallacy.
Pretty much, yes. It's like, oh, well. Andy, back out. No, don't be ridiculous. I have all of it then. I have a nice, pretty set. I don't think I bought the art book, though. I didn't really see the point of that.
No,
as nice as it is, but bollocks to it. And that's not going to fit in the box anyway, so never mind.
So yeah, this Anachrony expansion includes, I think it's a new resource called Flux, a new action called Blinking, which allows you to teleport your exosuit into a different location.
Sounds interesting.
And an upgraded, what's the fracture device, whatever the hell the fracture device is.
I read something about it. You can travel backwards in time or forwards in time or something, and because the normal mechanic is you send stuff into the past, don't you?
Yes, you grab stuff from the future. In
the present, you grab stuff from the future. That's right. I've got a feeling.
And then you have to send it back at some point.
Because otherwise, you end up with an
anomalies.
Anomalies. That's right.
Yeah.
The whole thing goes tits up, which you fell victim of.
Well, last time we played, I tried to get loads of victory points by time travelling, because it's one of those games which has got points from lots of different things, and time travelling can get you a lot of points if you do it right. I didn't do it right.
No, we got that wrong. Alora, hilariously, didn't time travel at all. Beat us massively. Yeah. So key to that game, all about time travel. Don't do it.
Yes. The other thing it's got a revised solo version. I've played the solo version. I thought it was all right, actually. I didn't see what the issue was, but apparently it had some issues of some description. So
greater minds than ours have obviously seen through it.
Yes. It's not hard, though, is it?
No, not really.
Jam jar full of plankton would be able to see through what we couldn't see.
That's harsh but fair.
Yes, so we are both back in that. It's only just started, so there's still plenty of time, which is usually we're more on the ball than usual. Usually we mention the Kickstarter just when it's about to finish, but we're more on the ball this time.
We are.
So that's Anachrony, Fractures of Time expansion and Infinity Box from Mind Clash Games.
So Sanctum, another one from Czech Games Edition. We like Czech Games Edition. We know someone who is affiliated with them, who may or may not be called Paul Grogan. He does a lot of their rule books. And as you put this one in, Steve, I'm going to let you talk about this.
I'm surprised you actually started there. So this is a new game from CGE and Philip Neduk. I hope I've pronounced that right. I have probably got that horribly wrong.
I think he made Adrenaline?
I was about to say, he's the designer of Adrenaline.
Yeah, there we go.
And this is coming out in autumn. I should imagine by when they say autumn, that means Essen, because it's a Czech Games edition. As it'll be Essen this year. And this is like a fantasy game where you're fighting demons.
Sounds interesting.
Now, it's only got some kind of teasers about the rules so far, but it's supposed to. It's going to have some dice-based stuff in it, so it's not like just a fantasy reflavor of Adrenaline. What it is instead is apparently I think you get kind of gamble on what's on the dice from what I can see. But what you have to do is you have to level up and change your style or change your tactics from one fight to another to carry on, is my understanding. It's one of those things where they've written like 3 paragraphs. At the moment, we're kind of like just reading between the lines and trying to work out what's going on. But what's interesting is CGE, apart from their kind of party games, they only kind of do one big box game every 18 months to 2 years at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the last one they released would have been Pulsar 2849.
Yep.
Which I'm still to play, actually. At least fully. Played with Paul. He took us through it, which I really enjoyed. We've talked about it before, so I won't dwell on it. But I've yet to play a full game of it. I think the one before that must have been Adrenaline, I would have thought.
Yeah, it was,
That was 3 years ago.
So we've enjoyed those. We're big fans of those games, although I need to play Adrenaline again. I must admit, I haven't played it in ages.
I keep looking at the box going, really want to play that, but Alora hates it, so...
Laura doesn't like shooty bang bang, does she?
She doesn't like shooty bang bang, no. Again, one of these where she's wrong, but I'm never going to change her mind, so never mind.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't know much about it at the moment. It's inspired by classic fantasy stuff. You're fighting demons, you're leveling up, you're rolling some dice, although it won't be as simple as just rolling some dice because it'll be CGE, so it won't be your kind of typical Ameritrash dungeon crawler. It'll be something different. Hopefully,
there will be that clever thing, TM.
There will be that clever thing, TM, and hopefully we'll be able to play this at UK Games Expo.
Hopefully, yes. I rather look forward to that. And if we don't, Paul, I want an explanation as to why not.
Well, I'm going to start just sending messages to Paul on every single social media I know going, can we play it, Paul? 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 Can we play it, Paul?
It's a tactic that could work.
It probably will. So speaking of fantasy adventures, another Kickstarter launched today, which I am very intrigued about. Now, this is a Dungeons & Dragons Kickstarter called Odyssey of the Dragonlords. Now, there's a lot of these things crop up on Kickstarter all the time, and they're kind of like licensed 5e products, and a lot of them look quite interesting, but I thought I'd bring this one to your attention, Mr. Lewis, particularly.
Yes!
Because
I've just read the top line.
Yep, this is an adventure book for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons that blends classic fantasy with Greek mythology, and from the lead designer of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2.
That noise you've just heard is me soiling my trousers. Wow.
Yes.
I think I might be backing that one.
Indeed. So this is like a campaign book and adventure. So it's a whole new setting. It's their own setting with their own monsters and a series of adventures, I think. All beautifully done. I mean, they've got little screenshots of all the art. I mean, it's all absolutely... 20 years ago, this would be like black and white, made on someone's home computer. And looking like it was made on someone's home computer. These modern looks are absolutely beautiful, and it's got new monsters in there, like showing you it's got like stats for Cerberus in there and things like that. And if you go for the fancy ultra swanky version, you also get some like massive like pull out maps and things like that you can slap on the table of the world and the major cities and things like that. I'm getting this.
Getting this.
It might just be the PDF version I back. I don't know at this point, but I'm getting this.
You are about to receive an email informing you of some information.
Would that be Kickstarter crashing you up?
It might be, yes. Well, turns out May is going to be an expensive month.
Yes. So that is Odyssey of the Dragonlords. It's on Kickstarter now. It's on for another few weeks. We suggest you give it a look because we are rather intrigued by this.
Yes. I think I'm producing a tentpole right now.
I think that'll do us for now on news, because we've got plenty of games to talk about.
We have at least 3.
That's a lot.
That is a lot for 2 people.
It's a lot for 2 people, especially as we both played them together. So we've had a good thrashing through of these games.
Yes, this will be a good discussion. Settle back, settle
back.
back. Get your cup of tea, scone, and a pipe, and maybe a dog by the fire, and listen in while Steve and Andy take you through the magical world of board games, beginning with Chapter 1, Donning the Purple.
This is a bloody good game.
Yes, it is. Right, game number 2.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, God, where do we start? Oh, God, yeah. This is... I should probably go back to the original Kickstarter description of this, because it did sort of summarise it quite well.
So this got delivered around September time, was it?
Something like that, yes. I don't know exactly.
I think it was an Essen release. So
it wouldn't surprise me, actually, thinking about it. So, yeah, probably September, October. All right, yes. Late 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And I am extremely glad I backed this. Because it got my attention early on, because it is very pretty, which helps. I know that's one way to get my magpie looking at you. But the idea that it is a completely, fully asymmetric, backstabby, king of the hill worker placement.
Based on the Roman Empire.
Yes. That's ticked pretty much all of the boxes for me.
Yes. So, after our first game of this, I revised what I thought the game actually was. Because the first time we played it, I thought it was this kind of, as you said, this backstabby, I need to be in charge and I'm going to win. But what I'm going to say is, actually, this game is quite pandemic-y. But whereas Pandemic, you're trying to, get rid of all the diseases and cure the world, this is a game where you are trying to hold off the bad things that are happening in the world, but at the same time, you come out as looking like the hero.
Yes, it's wonderful. It's like, I don't know if you've seen the episode of South Park where Cartman essentially goes back in time to the Declaration of Independence, and essentially it's America basically starting wars but claiming they don't want anything to do with wars, and obviously having your cake and eat it. It is basically that. You have to be on top, because the major way, it's not the only way you score points in the game, the major way you score points in the game is as the Emperor. So each of you plays as a particular faction within the Roman Empire, one of whom is the Emperor, one of whom is essentially the head of the Senate, and the other one is the direct heir, at least that's how it starts as, of the Emperor at the start of the game. Now, the heir can change through the game, and the Emperor almost certainly will change through the game. And the magical point of this is you get a certain amount of stamina to do all of your actions throughout the game. But whenever you do an action, most of the actions in the game, all of the other players can basically do a sort of complementary action. So they can do the same thing at the same time. So you can burn through quite a lot of this stamina. And the chances are you're probably going to die. But that's not a bad thing, because essentially the game takes it on as if the next person you take on is essentially your sort of successor in your own family. So your son or your cousin or your brother or whatever it is. So essentially your family line continues throughout all of this. And you could become the Emperor in one turn and then literally lose the Emperor, but then die, and someone sort of comes in and assassinates you. In the same turn, somebody else becomes the Emperor, they could be assassinated in the same turn, and the third person could become the Emperor, all in the space of a single year.
Yes.
It's mental.
It is, and it's weird because it's like timing when to kill the Emperor is of utmost importance.
Yes, it is, because during the year, essentially you have there's a bunch of enemies running around the map, which is the pandemic bit that Steve talked about. You've got to keep those at bay, and they kind of kick off at the start of the turn. Then you get a bunch of cards that basically say bad things happen, and you've got to deal with them. And then everyone gets to do their things, and at the end of the year, there's 4 years in the game, you then have to feed the people. And if you can't feed the people get grumpy, and they kick the Emperor out. And of course, if you become the Emperor just before you have to feed the people, and you don't have enough money or food to feed the people, you're in for a bad time. Which is exactly this timing that Steve's talked about. If you become the Emperor just at the wrong spot, That's that. It's a bad day. Bad day in the Senate.
Yeah, because we've played this 2-player and 3-player. We should point out that this game is designed as a 3-player game. And it shows because it works at its absolute best when you are playing with 3 players.
Yes.
It works with 2, but with 3, you have that just enough of a random not tipping of the balance, if that makes sense. Because to give an example of how this timing works, in the 2-player game, me and you were both working out how much grain we had to feed the people and how much money we had to buy grain if we didn't have enough. And we were both trying to time it so the other person would get killed or murdered or assassinated or whatever, just in time for the other person to sweep in with their cash and like go, ta-da, I am the saviour of the Roman Empire, I fed everyone. And there was a fantastic moment the first time we played where I basically left. I enticed you. You were like, ooh, Steve's looking weak. If I assassinate him now, he's going down. And you did that. You went, ha, I'm now the emperor. And I went, yeah, now you have to feed everyone. And you went, oh, shit, I haven't got the money for that.
No. So Andy was only the emperor for about a quarter of a turn. It is so beautifully done. But you're right. The 3-player game is absolutely the best. Because you've got this extra player and you don't know what they're going to do.
Yes.
They could be out for themselves. They could be kind of working with the other person who's not the emperor. They might even be helping the emperor to get rid of the other person. It's so... I'm not going to say chaotic because that's the wrong word. You've got to watch your back. You have to. And that's the whole point of the game. That's the beauty of it. Becoming the emperor is a good thing because that's where you score most of the points. But... it's also, as soon as you become the emperor, you're basically a great big bullseye, and everyone wants your job. It's this lovely poison chalice. It's the one thing that you want, except at the same time, it's the one thing you absolutely don't want, because you'll just get stabbed. And I loved it. I think it's so clever. It's deliberately unstable. It's deliberately, I'm not going to say imbalanced in terms of mechanics or features within the game, but it's imbalanced in the sense that you are always on the back foot. Yeah,
definitely. There's always a point when you think, well, if I do this, someone can take advantage of it. Like the big one is, you called it worker placement, which...
it's more action selection, I think.
It kind of is and it isn't it? Because what you basically got is you got a big pool of discs and you use these to take actions. But on your turn, you can take 2 actions unless you're the emperor, and you can take 3 if you're the emperor. But when you pick an action, anyone else around the table can follow on and do the same action. But it costs them one of their discs to do it. And if you ever run out of discs completely, you're dead.
Yep.
Which means for starters, you lose a victory point. And if you're the emperor, then someone else becomes emperor, possibly. So there's this very careful management of like the more actions you do, which means the more stuff you do, the more chance you've got of someone just swooping in, trying to assassinate you and taking you out of the game.
It's so clever. I love it. I think it's very, very well thought out. So, yeah, Spittershank Olsen here has come up with a wonderful, wonderful game, and it's only small as well. I mean, it's not a sprawling game. There's a board that's folds out to be probably about half the size of a standard Monopoly board, give or take. With a lovely map of the Roman Empire on it, with the 4 regions and a bunch of provinces within, where the enemies and things move around in. You can move soldiers about and stuff like that. And it also determines things like income and how much food and famine and stuff's running around. But then you've each got your own player board, which has all your maps, all your actions on. And then the Emperor's got an additional board, and they've got Emperor-specific actions as well. So... and, of course, all that board moves around as well. So, but that's pretty much all there is in the game. It's not massive. So what you get for the money is very, very good. Yeah. I also like the way, as you said, you've got the separate board, which is the Emperor board, which gives you more action options. But the actions help the board state. So they allow you to put viaducts up, which stop famines happen. They allow you to move troops around, which allow you to get rid of the barbarian invading barbarians. But the beauty of that is it costs you money to do these actions, and of course it costs you your discs, but they don't necessarily benefit you. They benefit everyone. Yes. So there's this horrible thing of like thinking, if I put a viaduct up now and someone kills me, well, they're going to get the benefit of that viaduct. And of course, you get to choose your own air as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating as well, yeah. Because if there's no air, whoever is on the highest on the Senate track wins.
Mm.
But if you haven't got an air, if you have got an air, it goes to the air. So there's also a balance there about, well, do I plough my money into like taking control of the Senate so that I become the emperor or not?
Yeah, or do I choose myself as the heir? Could it be my son? Or do I deliberately? Yes, you can. Or do you choose someone else deliberately and go, you're the heir now, unlucky, bye! Deliberately basically screw someone that way. There are so many ways to just be a dick in this game. It's brilliant. And then you've got all of the cards, which we screwed up to start with, where you get I think it's up to, is it 3 in your hand, whatever it is. But anyway, these are basically special actions. They give you bonuses, but they can also give you strength when you're doing combat as well. But they are almost always dick moves. So, and the one thing we didn't kind of realise until about halfway through our second game is that instead of playing these cards just on your turn, you can play them whenever you like.
Yes.
It's like, so you think you've formed a strategy. Yes, I'm okay. I can do this. I can do this. I can do that. I'll feed the people. Yes. And then someone comes along and goes, bang! You lose half the stuff in the grain store. What? No!
So Laura thought she was wearing her way to winning, and I go, boom! Cost of grain has now doubled.
Oh, it was brilliant. The look on her face. What? Oh, absolutely outstanding.
It's weird in a way as well, because it's like, as you said, it's like worker placement, so it's a very Euro type game. But it's got these take that cards, which are, traditionally this kind of like trashy, domain of things like Munchkin and things like that, cards which basically like, I'm going to screw you over. But for some reason, they just work really well on this. And in fact, because you can only hold like 2 or 3 of these cards, there is a point when you're looking at people's hands going, what the hell have they got there?
Yes, exactly. Oh, it was great. Really, really love it. But it is only a 3-player game, and that is it. You can't play more than 3, but it's so perfect at 3, you don't need any more.
No. The game wouldn't work at 4, I don't think. I think at 4 you'd have people ganging up on each other or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. So that's Donning the Purple.
Yes. Highly recommend that one.
Definitely. We played on the same day, actually, following Donning the Purple. We played Treasure Island.
Yarr.
And you were Long John Tudor.
I was indeed, yes. So this is a game unlike anything else I own. I think this is truly unique in my collection, this. So one player takes on the role of Long John Silver, who has buried some treasure on the island or knows where the buried treasure is. So if you're familiar with the story of Treasure Island or you watched Black Sails, you'll know exactly what the story is. So you have a little map, and you've determined on this map where the treasure is. And then all the players have to then try and deduce where that is. And the idea is that the rest of the players are interrogating Long John Silver and is giving them cryptic clues. It's north of the volcano, or it's west of your position, or it's not within 3 miles of a black tower. And the idea is that Long John Silver has to give these clues, which are mostly true. You can bluff on the odd one or two, but give them in such a way that it doesn't really give away the location of these things, whereas the players will be able to do certain actions which basically allow them to move around and dig holes in the ground to kind of look for these things, but can also do things like be given hints, which area of the map it is in, or which compass direction it is from where they are at the moment. Now, I've played this a couple of times now, and I think as Long John Silver, this game's actually pretty hard. I don't think I've twigged on the masterful art of being quite getting the deception level right with these clues.
Oh, I don't know. You did quite well. Some of the clues you gave me were bastards. I asked immediately for clear right. Which direction, or give me a compass clue. So basically, it rules out. I think it's two of the 8 cardinal directions on the compass. It's basically not 2 of those, and you gave me the 2 that basically pointed one off the board and one an area I already knew it wasn't in. You twat.
True. Yes.
I mean, obviously that was well played from you. I was like, no. But it is interesting because you can draw on the map. You get the felt tip pens, you get a little map as well. You draw on all this sort of stuff, and you draw where you go, and
draw all over the board as well.
It's brilliant. But I do find it a bit of a, I'm not going to say a crapshoot, because we did get to the point where ultimately one player won, and you were really looking at it going, ooh, is that right? Is that the right sport? I mean, how pixel perfect does it need to be?
Yeah, and because you're actually putting the cross on this little tiny, it's like 3 inches across, 10 centimeters across kind of board. I kind of went and viewed I couldn't say it wasn't in there, because I think if you'd have dug on and got closer to it later on, one of you would have gone, nah, you're cheating there, Steve.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, how much credence do you give, the resolution of the map, basically? But ultimately, I quite enjoyed it. I did like it. I like the idea of it. It's funny you should say, actually, it was quite difficult to be Long John Silver. You've just twigged my mind to think that is it similar to being the ghost in Mysterium?
I was actually going to say it's a unique game, but the closest I could think of was Mysterium. But the thing with Mysterium, you're trying to give them clues they can get, whereas in Treasure Island, you're trying to give them clues they won't get.
Yes, it's true. Whereas in Mysterium, you're trying to help them out, trying to give them clues they will, and invariably don't get.
Yes.
But yes, I mean, being the ghost in Mysterium is quite difficult, because you're basically dealt garbage and you've got to make something of it, whereas obviously in Treasure Island you know exactly what you're doing, and you're thinking, how can I weasel out of this?
Yes, it's weird though, because the 2 times I've played it now, the people have found the treasure, I think, almost by accident. They've both kind of gone, well, I think it's in roughly this area. It wasn't like, oh, I know it's definitely in this area. Both times they've both kind of gone, it's probably over here. I'll just do another search while we wait for some more clues. And I've gone, oh, yeah, you've got it. Oh, really?
Yeah. Seems almost luck-based in a way. But, it's kind of a sort of educated guess, I would say. But that's fine. And I did like it. I like the style of it. I like the artwork, and the theme is really, really good. And then it's a shame we didn't get far enough through the time scale. So Laura was just found it, basically, as you say, just almost by accident. Where Long John Silver breaks out of prison and goes to find his treasure himself, and you got to chase him down.
Yeah, so the final aspect of the game, so basically you have like days, it's tracked in days. And every day something else generally happens. It could be like another clue goes down. It could be Long John Silver gets more bluff tokens, which allows him to lie. But when it gets to the end, Long John Silver escapes, because one of the things the players have to do is choose which tower Long John is locked up in. So they've got to kind of agree amongst themselves very early on and think, well, we need to pick a tower that's as far away from where we think the treasure is as possible. And then what happens is, if you get to the end of the calendar, Long John Silver escapes, and he then has to get to the treasure before the players do. There's no more clues. The players know everything they're going to ever know, and then Long John Silver's basically going to cheese it directly to where it is. And then it's like, does he go direct to it? Because if he goes direct to it, well, all the players can see which direction he's headed in, or does he try and snake around to put them off the scent?
I would have liked to have seen that, but no, it's a good game. I do like sort of hidden information games, and that one was, especially with pirates, and you can't go wrong.
You can't. I do want to play this with John, because I think John's going to really like this one.
I think so, yeah, so he'll definitely like it. I bet he puts on a pirate accent for the entire game, which I suspect might grate after.
I agree with both those observations.
Speaking of things that started to grate after a while.
Right, now, we are going to talk about something. Now, we're going to split this review of this game into 2 halves. So we're going to talk about a legacy game. So for the first half of the discussion, we're going to try and keep it spoiler-free.
Yes.
We will then issue a spoiler warning, and then from the rest of the podcast onwards, we shall be spoiling the hell out of this thing.
So don't say you weren't warned.
Yes. So we're going to be talking about Charterstone from Stonemaier Games, which is a legacy game which came out around about Christmas time 2017.
Was it that early?
Yeah.
Jesus, have I had it that long?
Yeah, you've had it about 18 months.
No, it's just thinking, you're probably right, actually, because I played it at Alora's and the fire was on. Obviously, it would have been cold, which means it would have been, last winter.
Yeah. So this is the legacy-inspired game from Jamie Stegmaier, Stonemaier Games, which you are taking on. You're taking on a charter. That's what it's called, the Charterstone. You're basically finding a new island and you're building buildings on this island.
Yes, you have been tasked by the Forever King to build a new village that could essentially become the new capital of whatever kingdom you're in, basically. And your job is to run one of these charters along with 5 other people, or up to 5 other people, and build buildings of varying types in order to, ultimately to score points, but to develop the village, to make it bigger, better, faster, stronger, and ideally fulfill quests or tasks set to you each game by the Forever King.
And what makes this a legacy game is when you say build the village, you are basically putting stickers on the board of the buildings which you're building. If you think about your typical worker placement game, you are putting worker placement spots onto the board.
And every single one of them is different. There are no repeats, so every building is different. Every building, again, your standard worker placement stuff, you have pay a cost, get a benefit. Same sort of idea. There are 6 charters and therefore 6 resources. There are also other things that happen later in the game.
The other thing to mention is followers. So you get them straight from the beginning, which is you get followers are basically character cards which give you bonuses. And so
what they're called? Personas.
And what these things do is they give you bonuses and you get to name them when you draw one of these cards. And again, game by game, you'll unlock more personas which do different things every game. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward worker placement game, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. You get 2 workers, a large one and a small one, and you're thinking, why are they different sizes? Well, we'll get onto that later in the spoiler bit. But essentially, you have 2 workers. Everyone has 2 workers, and you can use those. You can bump. One good thing actually is you're allowed to bump a worker off a spot, which is not common in worker placement games. Usually, once a worker's on a spot, you ain't doing anything with that spot. But you can kick someone off. Depending on how far through the game you are, various effects can kick off if and when you do that. Ordinarily, you just boot them off. The player will get their counter back. You can boot yourself as well, so you can have this sort of perpetual cycle of just booting yourself off a single spot if you want, if you've got the resources to do it. But that's basically it. So yes, fairly straightforward worker placement. You can go anywhere on the board, but you have an area that you control, or at least you are responsible for, and that's the only bit that you are able to affect on the board.
Yeah, and there are incentives later on in the game to either use your own section of the board or encourage other players to use your section of the board.
Yes.
But the actual mechanics of the game itself are really rather simple because the way you're scoring points each game, the main ones are you're fulfilling basically delivery contracts. So get X amounts of resources, you send them to port on one side of the board, resources come off, victory points come your way.
Yes.
So you've got the typical worker placement thing of, go to one unit thing that changes that resources into this resource, which means you can get other things. But you also get the victory points for the crates. Yes,
and this is the bit that grows the game. So if you find a card with a crate on it, you'll pay a cost, usually one of the common actions in the middle of the board that anyone can do, which you'll use a lot to start with, but as the game develops, you'll probably use less and less. And that will open a box. And opening the box is the major part of the legacy game, where if you open a crate, it will unlock something. Usually a building and a couple of other bits and bobs, like a persona or a few other things, or other type of resource or another game element.
Yes.
And so on and so forth. But usually, yes, that's the way you'll score big points for unlocking opening boxes or building buildings. They're the 2 big point scorers, really, these big chunks of points.
Oh, and the other one is the objectives.
Yes, there are common objectives throughout the game. Yeah, so you'll score, I think it's 5 points plus whatever bonuses you've got. And that'll be something like have one of each resource, or have 3 building cards in your hand at the same time, something like that. So then you'll just stick your little counter on it, and then there's your points. So, and then the game length is determined by a little track that will count down depending on the type of action you do. So certain actions, things like opening boxes, building buildings, will advance this little time track 1 space, and that will determine the length of the game. So the tracker is longer with more players, 2 to 6 player game, and once you get to the end of that, everyone finishes that round and it's game over. So you have to sort of there isn't any end game scoring, so basically you know how well you're doing all the way through the game.
The other thing to mention as well is you have discs, or the little hexagons, which are you tend to spend these when you're doing an action which gets you lots of victory points. So claiming an objective or claiming one of the deliveries. And once you've got rid of all these discs, you can't do any more of these major objectives. They're a limited resource. And one of the things is once one player has ran out of these, the end game kind of tracker, which progresses you towards, just like goes at a breakneck speed. So once one person has got rid of all their discs, the game will end very quickly after that, regardless of where you are on that track.
Yeah, it advances a space at the start of that player's turn. So if a couple of players have done it in 6 players, it really does just disappear. You're like, shit, I've got no more than 2 turns left. Bollocks. My plan is 3 turns long. Shit.
And those discs are really one of the biggest strategic aspects of the game, I think.
Yes, they are. They can be very powerful. They can also be very crippling.
Yes, and it can be really annoying if you think you've ever wasted one of them.
But yes, Charterstone is a 12-game campaign, and unlike Pandemic, you don't replay any of the games, so once you've played it, you've played it. However, there is a recharge pack available, so once you get to the end of your campaign, you can turn the board over, and it's a fresh game, and you can basically start again. So as you go through the game, you'll unlock new rules. So you'll add, basically, like, the rulebook is essentially like a sticker book. Remember the sort of old, I'm not going to say Pirelli, but to those sort of sticker books. Panini, that's it, yes.
Yeah.
The Panini sticker books, so you put a new rule card in the rule book, and as you go. So yeah, the recharge pack basically gives you a new set of all of the changeable elements within the game. But then once you've played it again, you'll have to buy a new copy.
Yes, so you get, because the main board is double-sided, so you can basically play it on 2 sides.
Correct.
So, without going into spoilers, what's your thoughts?
I liked it. It's typical Stonemaier in the sense that there's no punishment for doing something dumb. You just get rewards for doing something good.
Yes.
It's the same as Scythe or Viticulture or Euphoria. Jamie's a big fan of positive reinforcement, so you can definitely tell Jamie's had his hand in this. Mechanically, it's very simple, as you've said. It's easy to pick up. It's very pretty. The artwork's lovely. It's easy to get hold. It's easy to get to grips with. To start with, but
yes,
I can't elaborate on the book without going into spoilers. That's the problem.
I think we can say, I can say it in kind of broad terms. I've played one campaign with 2 players.
Yeah, okay.
Right, but I will say we've only done 11 out of the 12 games. You have done...
I've done a 2-player campaign and a full 6-player campaign. Now, we finished the 6-player campaign, and I have to say, it was good fun. But that was probably more down to the people we were playing it with.
Yeah.
We had a good laugh. But I've also played it with Alora, and we've got 7 games through the campaign. And as a 2-player game, honestly, I don't think I'm going to play it again. No,
I don't. It's designed for a lot of players. I actually think it's designed for 6 players.
I think you're right.
And having any less than that, to me, means I think you miss out on so much. And we'll get onto the big problem of that in the spoiler section later. But as I said, we've played 11 games and we have had no real impetus to do that last 12th game.
No, I'm surprised. I'm surprised you haven't done the last one. But again, I'm not.
it's weird because what happened is we played it in bursts. So we basically played 6 games over 2 days, and then 6 months later played 5 games over 2 days.
Yeah.
And as soon as that game went away, because basically it was left on the table, so it was like, oh, should we play another game? Yeah, let's play another game. And each game takes about an hour. It's a short game.
Yeah, that's another good thing about it, actually. It is quite quick. Well, yeah, with 2 players, yeah, it's really quick. With 6 players, some of the games can take a little longer. But yes, it's an hour and a half tops. It's not a long game. We
found, though, that once that game got packed away, there wasn't this kind of, ooh, let's go and finish the campaign off.
Yes.
And I think it's because there are some really... It does do this really nice thing. I mean, the legacy aspect of it, I think, is done really, really well because, especially at the beginning, you unlocking that card, you going, oh, I've got a crate, what are we going to find next? You go in and you pull out cards like 5, 10, 46, and 63, and you pull out these cards and you go, ooh, I've got a new building. What does this building do? Ooh, can I build it? Ooh, maybe I can. Ooh, I've got a new persona. I've got a new follower. Ooh, those are interesting. New mechanics. There's something completely new. There's a new rule which has to go in the rule book, and it's that aspect of the game is lovely, and the way in which the board gets built from game to game is absolutely beautiful. But then at the end of it, or even kind of at the end of a game, it's kind of like, well, I don't feel as if there's anything bringing me back in.
Yeah.
It was almost like this dichotomy between winning a game and unlocking stuff. And there was a point in the games we were unlocking stuff because unlocking stuff was more fun than trying to win the game.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting to open the boxes. It's exciting to progress the game and see exactly what's in there. Agreed. And there are points where you find unexpected things, which we'll come on to, which is great. And that's part of the fun of the legacy game. We've had it in Pandemic as well.
Yeah.
But you're right. We've both fallen foul of the... I mean, I've written about this in a recent article. My musings, which is on our website, where it gets to the point where the legacy game becomes a chore. Because you really, you kind of just can't be arsed finishing it, but you really should finish it because you paid for it and it's just kind of hanging on by one last thread and you should probably finish it, but you're like, but I've got a game here that's actually, not shit.
I wouldn't call Charterstone shit either.
No, it's not. Sorry, that's being harsh. But it's like I'd rather play something else.
Yeah, it just seemed to be lacking, and I think it's very difficult to kind of put a finger on what exactly is lacking. I think it's missing depth. I think it's too light a game.
I agree. Actually, there's one thing that surprised me when I played it was just how light it was. Because I would say it's lighter than Viticulture, and Viticulture's not a heavy game.
I would say Viticulture can get quite complex, especially with the expansion. I would say it's lighter as a worker placement game. I'd say it's lighter than Lords of Waterdeep, which I consider a pretty.
Oh no,
yeah,
it's
definitely.
not that light. Not that light.
No, it is. There's less to consider. Waterdeep are trying to get resources to get a mission, and I can play intrigue cards on people, and people can grab my spot. This is like, well, I want that. Okay, I've got that. I'll go get that. Okay, I'll go get that. Oh, I'll knock you off that spot because I want that. There was no right. Okay, in Charterstone there was no difficult decisions in it. There was no point when I kind of thought I've really got to think about this. What am I going to do? Because it was just a case of I'll grab that.
See, I disagree. There were in the 2-player game. I can probably see your point because the player interaction I think is the problem. Because I'm going to try and not spoil this, but in the 2-player, because you basically got your little charter, your own little area, and you're kind of doing things in there, and occasionally you'll venture out to other areas to get different types of resource, because each charter basically produces one of those resources.
Yeah.
You'll just do that, and you're right, in a 2-player game, that does happen. You kind of look, it's almost multiplayer solitaire.
Yeah.
Almost. And because you can bump workers off, there's no real way of really screwing somebody else's game over. And this is a real problem with it, because in the 6-player game, we found a major runaway problem.
Right.
because once, I mean, we were playing against Dan, and we all know Dan is really, really good at Euros and worker placements and stuff. But Dan had basically built his engine over 3 or 4 games or whatever. I mean, and the cards came out, and he'd obviously got these cards, and he had something that worked for him. And basically, Dan won something like 7 of the 12 games that we played. No great surprise to us in the group, but the way he won it was he had an engine. He did his thing, and he did this pretty much the same thing every time. And the problem with Charterstone is you cannot take stuff off other players. So once someone's got an engine, they are not going to relinquish that engine, because you can take cards from one game to the next within reason, and obviously depending on how many spots you've got and all this sort of stuff, there's a limit to what you can carry. But as a player, if you're within your limit and you can carry all of those cards over to the next game, you're damn well going to, because it works, and you're going to get a really good engine again. And there's not a goddamn thing anyone can do to stop you.
And even in a 2-player game, that's what Amanda did.
Yes, and Alora did it as well, and that's all I could do.
Amanda got a combination of things that basically meant that the game started, and within 2 turns, she shot ahead of me.
Yeah.
And then I'm playing catch-up and playing catch-up and playing catch-up, and the game's over.
Yes, that's it. I had exactly the same problem with Alora. In a 6-player game, it's less pronounced, because other players can obviously do certain things and potentially get in the way, and there's a lot more things being opened and there's a lot more choice. But in a 2-player game, I absolutely agree. Once one player gets that little engine going, you can't do anything about it. Every single time, whenever I got some points, Alora would get some points as well, but she'd always get 1 more or 2 more. And there's nothing you can do about it. I also think a couple of the charters are slightly imbalanced.
Yes, because the charters are asynchronous in a way. They're centered around a different resource, and I thought they were, at first, it looks like the charters are based on this kind of tech tree, which is the same for each charter. But then all of a sudden, there's this other thing that gets added, which we'll mention later. But then they branch off and become quite different things. Your buildings do. And you're like, kind of like, well, why come you can do that, but I can only do this kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
And although but this is also the weird thing about the game is balanced, you could actually grab some of those things occasionally. There was, you could get particular buildings which allow you to grab the things that were unique, which kind of spoilt it in a little bit. But I also found if you had a building that everyone else needed, because there's a thing later on which basically gives you a bonus if people use your charter. And I found if you manage to get a resource that other people need, well, you're also then jumping ahead, because then people are giving you resources by doing that. As you kind of alluded to earlier, there's no way of affecting anyone else in the game. You are multiplayer solitaire, to the point where you are really just looking at what you can do with your own stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we found, I don't know about you, but in the 6-player game, I think the metal area is more powerful, because more things use metal than anything else.
It seemed to be, yeah. I agree with that one. We
found that. Although, hilariously, Darren had that metal area and didn't win a single game. And the randomness of the buildings coming out obviously means that you've alluded to yourself that the balance of the game can suddenly change, because all of a sudden one player will have this super duper turbo building that can do something miles more powerful than anything else in any other charter. Again, in a 6-player game, that massive effect is slightly diminished, because you've got 5 other players who can all sort of compete for it and use it and basically get the same advantage, whereas you've got one player doing it, and you can only put one thing in every time, and you've only got one other player.
Yeah.
The balance of power is significantly magnified, because you've only got, one other player playing. So, yeah, I think it was very swingy as a 2-player game as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, we did try the Automa. Yeah, which is the basically a randomized player. So you can add it, if you want to, you can play this game solo and add in 5 random players, which will do something random if you so wish. So we tried a game with one Automa, and we absolutely hated it. Mainly because it was completely random and so completely unpredictable. There's a point later in the game where a particular kind of resource basically gets plonked on all the buildings, and there are victory points for grabs if you grab sets of these things. Basically, the first worker who goes and uses this building grabs this resource. And there's lots of victory points if you've got the right cards in front of you available for getting these. We found another reason why Amanda was jumping ahead. And what happened was that you need the full set, and the autonomo went and grabbed one of these tokens. And he's like, well, if I'm against another player, I can predict where they're going to go. I can say, look, I can see what the resource they've got. I can go, right, I'm going to grab that one first because that's what they want and jump in ahead of them. But the automaton just randomly just hoovers up shit. And it didn't feel like you were playing against a real person. It did really feel like you were just playing against just the game, just randomly cutting stuff off. So we actually backpedaled with that game. We got halfway through the game and backpedaled and restarted it. We hadn't made any permanent changes.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's useful. Yeah, I was interesting because I've never used the automa in it. I don't like them personally. I've never liked automas in any of the Stonemaier games. I'm not saying they're bad. I've just never used them because I don't like the idea of them. And it's interesting you've said that because because we in our 2-player game we never used it. Another problem with a 2-player game is that you don't comparing it to the 6-player game is you just don't open anywhere near as much.
No, and something I can't mention until spoilers, but there's a massive problem I have with the game, which we will mention later. Very much due to that. Now, what it does is it fills up the other charters for you. So basically, the start of every game, you put another random building in the charters. So it kind of builds up the area. So your options for your workers to go to increases. But as you said, it doesn't open as many boxes. No. In a 2-player game, you've got to consciously open more boxes to keep the technology tree building. Which means you're then playing the game to open boxes rather than
to win the game.
Win. Yeah, which I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
My other really big complaint is the rules.
Yes, yeah, you and I fell foul of these a few times because I remember we had a few discussions about you've done this, yeah, I've done this, I did this, oh, I didn't do that. There are a lot of inklarities in there that can actually have a fairly significant effect on what happens. We struggled actually in our 6-player game, so we ended up just having a round the table discussion about what it actually meant, and we just played on from there. And I think we just basically played something like half the campaign with almost like a house rule because we couldn't find the answer anywhere.
Now, fair dues, Jamie Stonemaier himself had been really good on the Board Game Geek forums because all the rules are on numbered cards. If you basically went to the Board Game Geek forum and said, I've got a problem with rule number 66, he'd be on there like a flash and give you an example of it. But what we were really worried about was because decisions you make in the game are permanent, and I mean permanent, stickers on boards, cards getting ripped up, that kind of thing. We were really reluctant. Like in a normal game, if you'd read this rule, you would have said, oh, let's just play it like this, and then later on we'll just double check after the game. But because you're playing a game where the implementation of that rule has a permanent effect on the game, we were more hesitant. It's like, well, what does that actually mean? What does that phrase mean? We have to look this up now. And we ended up looking up almost every single rule on the internet.
And that's not good. It breaks flow. It gives you less incentive to play, as you say, in case you do something wrong. Because if you do something wrong, your game's a bogey, essentially.
Well, yeah, that was the worry, definitely, yeah.
And not just that one game, potentially all of the future games as well. Because you've done something that you shouldn't have done, which can have a massive knock-on effect.
Well, yeah, and the worry was that one of us would get an advantage because we've misinterpreted the rule.
Yeah,
we misinterpreted the rule, and one player would get an advantage from the way that was done or be a disadvantage, and later on you'd go, oh, well, you were actually disadvantaged by our interpretation of that. How do we balance this out again?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes.
It's a bit disappointing, really. The weird thing is we keep saying we're going to try it again. Keep saying we're going to, if we can find a regular group of players, and we think more kind of gateway players, so people that aren't into things like donning the purple and Anachrony. Because I think for people who are reasonably new to board games, I think the level, we've complained it's quite light, I think the level's about right and increases the complexity as you play game by game.
That's true, actually. Yeah, I think you're probably right, actually. And you'd also have the fun of opening the boxes and people exploring the game as well, so they'd want to keep playing. It's like, oh, wow, are all board games like this? Yes. That's not a bad shout, actually. I'd not considered that. But yeah, no, you're right. It's light enough that the game does handhold you quite a lot, especially for the first couple of games. When it's introducing obviously the basic game is essentially just an introduction, really, and then it sort of kicks off in game 2. And even then, there are a few basic things that it then introduces that you use for the rest of the campaign. So it's very good like that. Jamie's very, very good at walking you through games like that. So yes, I think you're right. It's light enough that new players could play it. The danger is, of course, if you get one new player that doesn't like it, they're either screwed or you need to find another player to fill their spot.
Yeah, it's that one, yes. Right.
Let's spoiler the shit out of this.
Yes, right. We are going to wind up now. So if you want to play Charterstone and you want to see everything of this game for yourself, then we shall wind up now. But if you'd like to hear our spoilers and carry on listening, we shall finish off with our usual roundup now. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. We've been Polyhedron Collider. If you enjoyed the show, please give us a review on iTunes and share us with your friends. We're available to chat. We're on Twitter. I'm at PolyhedronC.
And I'm at Sonic H with a 0.
Sorry, no, we are at PolyhedronC. I am at Wahalfamadenga, and John is at John_Cage without a H. We're also on Facebook and the Board Game Geek Guild 2726. Since John isn't here, would you like to do the honours, Mr. Lewis?
Yes, we also do a weekly D&D session hosted by the good Mr. Tudor here, which we do broadcast over Twitch. We also, so if you want to go to twitch.tv/Polyhedron Collider, you'll see us on there and the lovely Arrakis. And also, we do publish the videos to youtube.com/user/Polyhedron Collider, because Steve got the account wrong. And you can see our antics on there. So, thank you for listening, and we will speak to you next time. Unless you're here for more spoiler action.
Indeed. If you're not, tatty bye.
Tatty bye. Right, let's tear the shit out of this. Where to start? Well,
right.
Minions.
Yes, minions. Now, minions do get unlocked quite early on, don't they?
Well, yes and no.
Well, if you're following the tech tree, they'd get unlocked. They should get unlocked quite early on.
I think in game 2, I think they get unlocked. One of them gets unlocked in game 2. I think you got... What did you... We got robots.
We got robots and bakers.
Oh, the chefs.
Yeah, chefs.
See, the chefs are really useful because you can get your little discs back.
Yeah, so I got chefs, but Amanda's got robots. And at the time, robots seemed more powerful. But it was only later in the game I realised that chefs were actually really, really clever.
They are extremely powerful. I think the two most powerful minions in the game are golems and chefs. Because golems give you resources.
Yeah.
And chefs give you your little discs back, and you can do a lot more with a disc than anything else, really, pretty much.
But you have to be careful about where you put that disc, because it can only come back from certain places.
It comes back from where the spent store, basically. So
yeah,
if you put it back if you put it on the board on one of these like ongoing majigs, you can't obviously take it back from there.
Yes. So if you put it on something like the delivery or claiming an objective, you can't get it back.
No, that's true.
But if you spent it for other things, so basically what you need to do if you've got the chefs is burn them up as quickly as possible to doing the non-committal stuff. And then you've still got all the actions later on to do all the committing stuff, like deliveries and things like that.
Yeah.
Now that was the first rule we had real trouble with.
Really?
Because the entire rules for minions are on one card-sized sticker that goes into the rule book.
Yeah.
And I think it lacked a couple of sentences. It's almost like as if the rules have been written and then, well, we haven't got room for this sentence. Oh, let's remove that. Because I wasn't sure whether they all went into your resource because they're your minions or whether they went into the central resource. In the end, it was a central resource. But my first reading of that card was they all come to you because they're your minions. It's like, well, are they my minions or have I unlocked them for everyone?
See, I never had that problem. I just assumed it was this essential resource because you put them on the minion card, which is like in the middle of the game. I think you get one of them for unlocking them, but that's about it.
It was bad. It's just one of those things. I thought it was badly worded, and the two of us were kind of like, could be either way here. Why? It didn't say explicitly that you put it to one side kind of thing, and it was just like, a little bit annoying in that regard.
Yes.
Now, what did you think about the story?
I kind of liked it. It started well, but it kind of fell apart, I think, about 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah.
Because the idea of it was nice, that, you're sent off onto a bold mission and you can build a new village and all this sort of stuff. But all the way through it, basically, I thought the Forever King was a idiot.
So were you good or were you nasty to him?
A bit of both.
Okay,
I think in our 2-player game we were mostly nice, but in our 6-player game, a lot of the time we basically, some people chose to really just piss him off because it basically benefited everybody a lot more to piss him off than it did to obey him. And towards the end of the game, we just didn't care. That's the thing; it kind of fell apart. I think the effect, again, it comes down to, I think it comes down to Jamie's personal design on games, is that you're never going to get punished as such normally, although there is one exception to this I'll come on to in a minute, where either nobody gets anything or everyone gets something, generally speaking. So we thought, well, everyone gets something, fine. There is one problem with that though: the f***ing Spectre.
Oh, that thing can cry off.
Exactly. The butt plug can piss off. Because they were also useless minions. We just didn't use them. Even Dan didn't use them. That's how useless they were. Because Dan can usually find a use for it. In any Euro game, you can find a use for everything. But nobody used the little mini butt plugs. They really do look like butt plugs. For anyone who's not played Charterstone, they honestly look like butt plugs. But then the Spectre. So the output of this thing was basically at the end of this game, basically your main character, your person, your little worker, gets turned into this ghost. And the only way you can get rid of this ghost is by finding a piece of treasure or paying a shitload of money to basically get your soul back, essentially. But whilst you're this Spectre, you can't be bumped or something, or you can't bump other people. It basically cripples you.
Oh, you can't bump other people and you cannot win the campaign.
That's right, there you go. So it's like, oh yeah, by the way, here is a massive you. Now, in our 6-player game, Darren already had one of the pieces of treasure that was needed. Because we'd played 6-player game, we'd opened shitload of boxes, we'd seen a lot of the game, and it was fine. There wasn't a really major... Dan and I basically plotted, right, we're going to keep all the treasure cards, Darren. But Darren then picked up one from opening a box and go, fine, I'll just pay the thing, and away it goes. And it was a minor inconvenience at best. In the 2-player game, because you haven't opened most of the boxes,
2-player game, this thing comes out, I'm the Spectre, you need a treasure. What the fuck's a treasure?
Yep, that's exactly what happened to me.
Treasure?
Alora was winning every game, and then I got... I was like... Treasure cards? What the hell are they? We haven't got treasure. Have you seen a treasure card yet? No. Right. And I don't have enough money because I'm losing. I need to spend all my money to try and keep up with you. Yep. That was horrible.
I saved up the money. It was 12 gold you needed.
There you go.
But based in mind, everywhere else during the game, we needed 2 or 3. So you need 12. And I basically spent, 3 games, I think it was, saving up the money.
I didn't get that far. I just thought,
I've now spent the resources in several games just spending money to get out of the game. So I can have a chance of winning the campaign. It was a kick in the balls, that was, and I absolutely hated it.
And the problem with it is, because in the 2-player game, you're saving all your money up to try and not lose the campaign. But the thing is, you've crippled your campaign chances anyway by saving all of that money, so you can't win the games that you're saving up in. So you're either way. It was just nonsense. Oh, no. That was just awful part of the game. No, not a fan. In fact, I came the closest to table flipping at that point. We haven't actually... It's that game that I think the one after it is the one we've played, and I'm not playing it again. I don't want to because I don't have any treasure. Elora's winning every game anyway.
Yeah.
And I have no chance of winning at all. So I just went, no, it. I cannot win. I know it's very childish, but I cannot win. There is no point in me playing on because I cannot win. There is no chance of me, and there's no fun then. I know I'm going to lose every game.
Yeah, and when you're only 6 games into a 12-game campaign...
Exactly.
It's like, well, what's the point? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm going to start another 6-player campaign and only 6 players because there's just no point. Don't play it with 2 players. It's shit.
I completely agree with you there. Yeah, and that happened to me and I really hated it. The other thing that really made me angry, and I actually mean made me angry, we've alluded to it. You open these packages and you unlock new things and you unlock new concepts. So you get visitors, you get treasures, you get quests, is it, or something like that?
Yes, it's essentially, it's like a one hit. If you've got the resource, you pay like three bread and a steel and you could make a bread oven or something and you get the VPs for it and it goes back into the discards.
And the way the game, you can tell, was supposed to be designed is that over 12 games, these mechanics will be slowly unlocked. And the promise was that by the time you get to the end of the campaign, that your game is completely unique. You know, you will have unlocked certain things and built different buildings on the board, and you will end up with, my version of the game after 12 games will be completely different to your version of the game, and we could still play it thereon.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what Jamie's thinking was behind this, but it feels like Jamie bottled it at game 10.
Yeah, I was expecting you to say that because you'd already warned me because you'd got to your 11th game, I think it was, before our 6th player got to the same point, and you warned me something was going to happen. I think you'd kind of half spoiled it for me, but at the same time I didn't care because we were just talking about it, and obviously we were kind of keeping par. And you said, just let me know what you think. So this basically, it's essentially, well, if you haven't got this far, open all the boxes. Just go hog wild. Open all the boxes. And you're like, well, what's the point of that? That means, what's the point of opening all the shit all the way through the campaign when I'm just going to open it here anyway?
And what that did in our game, because I said we had a 2-player game where even though we were trying to open boxes quickly, we weren't. We basically had like 5 mechanics got introduced to the game in one game.
Whoa!
So we had, I can't remember the specifics now, but we had like followers, treasures, and quests just suddenly come out, and that game just became pointless because just a whole load of shit just splurged out onto the game board, and it was now like, well, I don't know what half this crap is. So now it was just a load of shit clogging up the card pile because we didn't want any of that stuff because we didn't. We hadn't done that slow build up of it.
Because you built your engine around other things that, totally.
So we were like, there's one of the buildings which allows you to basically when you're grabbing these cards, they're from a pool which everyone can see, and one of the options is to discard stuff from this pool on one of the buildings. We just kept going to the building to get rid of all this new crap that we didn't want to see because, as you said, it didn't suit our engines, it didn't suit the way our strategies were built around.
Totally, yeah.
And I was angry because I just thought, well, you've made this whole deal about slowly building up the mechanics and each game being individual, and you've just gone, open everything. As you said, open everything. It took like 20 minutes opening all these bloody crates and boxes to get all these extra stuff in. And then, of course, going through all the rules again. Well, these are treasures. These do this. Right. These are followers. These are guests. These do this. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, you just reminded me, we got one of the rules. The treasure rules specifically is that they're only like one hits, whereas Dan kept putting them to the bottom of the deck in our game. So they came up again and again and again, and they massively imbalanced the game. So don't make the mistake we made. Once you've got a treasure, you can't have it again. It's out of the game.
Well, it reiterates the point, isn't it? The rules in that. And because, as I said, you're playing this, it's not just a campaign, it's a legacy game. It just screws with that concept. You make a mistake and that mistake's with you.
That's it.
12 more games.
Yeah, no, the arse fell out the game, I think, about game 10, as you say. It really lost steam at that point. I think it was the plot was doing well, and then the king was going to turn up at some point and see how you were doing. And I really thought at that point would be like a major turning point in the game. And like you'd rip stickers off, or there'd be something that came out, and your village got hosed, and you have to start getting something significant would happen. And basically just turned up and went, "It's the new capital. I'm going to sit here." What? Is that it? Cough, Jamie. It had built this thing up. It was a real disappointment, actually. Although the counterpoint, when you unlock the little cloud islands,
oh yeah,
that was
really
cool.
Clever.
That was really cool. Yes, you're like, the bit at the bottom of the box. What? There's an extra bit at the bottom. That was ace.
Yeah, that was it. And the cloud islands themselves were really clever. So these are basically extra slots which you could go over existing slots. And it was just like, there was a bit of a mind blown point at that point. It's like, oh, I've got 4 extra building slots. Oh, hang on, my engine can be completely different now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not as limited as I was before. Yeah.
That was really cool.
That was really cool. And the candle was really cool. It was a novelty. But
we just put it out. That'll do. Honestly, Rich just went, that's it. Right, we don't need to worry about that. Let's carry on.
We actually shut the windows to the kitchen when we were playing on that.
Oh, I wonder if it goes out for any reason. Yeah, some dick just blowing it out, yeah. And the thing is, again, it's undermined slightly by Jamie's positive reinforcement approach, is that it didn't really hamper the person who blew it out that much. It was very, very minor.
Yeah.
So you think, well, again, what's the point? I mean, this is the sort of thing you think if it goes, oh, Jesus, everyone has to be really, really careful. And it's like, oh, well, you lose a card or something. You're like, is that it? For God's sake. So I think, having us just ranted about the butt plug screwing us both over, that was a real sort of kick in the balls. But I think some of the punishments should have been a little harsher than they were. Mm. And they should have affected the entire group. Not just obviously the one person. Maybe they got a slightly more significant punishment than they did.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed over. The Spectre was very. Again, in the 6-player game, not harsh at all. That's probably how it was designed. Is that by this time in the game they've probably found treasure. Okay, great. And for those of us, we've got a 100% record here between the two of us. Neither of us found the treasure.
Yes.
In the 2-player game, it just wasn't found. So in the 6-player game, minor inconvenience. Perfectly fine. We'll carry on. Bit funny. We'll try and screw Darren over for a couple of games. Oh, he's found some treasure. Never mind. And that's it. But that comes back to the bit where you can't alter somebody else's engine and hand. Once they've got it, that's it. You're like, oh, I want to steal this treasure off him, and you can't. You can't stop him. And that's really annoying.
There's a limit to what they can keep between games. So sometimes you have to make a difficult decision. But then that just goes into a random pile. And if they're crafty, they can get that back into their hand anyway, just through normal playing in the game.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So you keep the bits which make your engine really work. And that's it. Like Amanda had one which allowed... because you get the persona and you get the followers. So the persona is basically you. And that gives you a game bonus, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Gives you either a bonus or a victory point thing for doing something in particular or a new mechanic. There was a point in the game when Amanda unlocked a persona which allowed you to have more than one persona.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was just like, what?
Yeah, we had that.
So she had 6 of them going at once. And it's like, okay, so your turn now takes twice as long as everyone else's turn because you're going this. Oh, and that means I'll do that. That means I can do that. That means I can do that. That means I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Again, it's all about this engine, the runaway effect of an engine. You just cannot affect it. And the runaway part of it is a serious problem. And it got bloody annoying because there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm.
Especially when you've got a persona that gives you a victory point for somebody else doing something on their turn.
Oh, God, yeah.
even if it's one victory point, you're getting a victory point for literally doing nothing. So all of a sudden, by the time it's come round to your turn again, especially the 6-player game, you've possibly got another 2 or 3 points for nothing.
Mm.
And then when a lot of the actions will probably only give you 2 or 3 victory points if you're paying for a couple of resources. That's a serious difference.
Yeah.
And are you ever going to give that card up? Are you? And yeah, the minions, some of them were very, very good. Others of them were not so great. The robots were useful, especially we found the robots were much more useful later on in the game when you needed cards, or
yes.
the improvement cards. The robots were a lot. They were kind of shit to start with because you didn't actually have that many cards to play around with.
I don't know. Actually, I thought that in our game the robots were really useful right from the start. Because it allowed you to just grab things, grab, and you had, before you knew it, you had all these followers in play, and a whole list of bonuses going on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. They were definitely more useful later on when there's a bigger array of cards that you could grab, so different types of them. The golems were incredibly powerful to give you an additional resource every time you played one. Jesus. That allowed you to build things quicker, you can get more things, get the treasures, get the special quests that you've mentioned. They were really powerful. The chefs, I think they were by far and away the most powerful one. But we didn't have that in our 2-player game. We didn't find the chefs or the golems.
No, we only unlocked the chefs and the robots in 2-player games, so we didn't get any of the other 4, which are the kittens.
Oh, the cats, the golem. So there's 6 of them. So there's chefs, cats, golems, butlers, robots, and ghosts. 6.
Right.
So the cats gave you basically a victory point every time you did something in your own area or someone did something on it. The robots gave you a card. The golems give you an extra resource. The butlers give you money, gold. What were the other 2? The ghosts... Oh, they gave you a reputation. That's it. That's why we never bloody used them, because by the time you got to the reputation track, there's only ever 2 people, two maybe 3 people on the reputation track fighting it all out. And the rest of them, we just went, nah, sack it off. So there's no point in using the ghosts.
Yes, because unless you were in the lead, it was just a waste of your discs.
Exactly. So no one ever used them. So yeah, the minions were either really useful or really pointless.
But we didn't unlock most of them, so
That's
we
the
unlocked
thing.
2 of them. And because of the way in which we built our little engines, I was finding I was needing to use Amanda's steelworkers to get steel, but she didn't need to use my brain and granary and bakery to get
that was
stuff.
That's exactly the problem.
My workers were doing nothing.
Yep. I had the same problem when I played our 6-player. In fact, even in our 2-player game, the steel person, I think Alora was steel. Darren had steel. He unlocked so many buildings. It was ridiculous because everything needs steel. Hardly anything uses coal. Hardly anything uses grain. What else was rubbish? I mean, it wasn't all bad, to be fair. Anyone's still listening. To be fair, we did enjoy Charterstone. It's not a bad game.
It's just not as good as we were hoping, I think.
Yes, it was disappointing, I think is the problem. The arse really fell out of it towards the end. The last game, you've asked me categorically, Andy, is the last game worth playing?
Well, that's it, because I didn't want to talk about this until one of us had played that last game, because I was worried in case it just pulled a belter out of the, out of its back pocket, a kind of a moment, but
nope.
By all accounts, it doesn't.
It did not. The last game was utterly inconsequential.
Play the game, tot up your end game score, and
yeah, that was it. There was nothing that really gave you the last game. No, you can get away with not playing it for all it does. I think it was a couple of games too long, really, that campaign. I
agree with that.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more I get annoyed by it, which is weird. Because I admit, I think if I found a group of people who would commit to it, I would probably play it again.
I agree. I was about to say, I would really like to play it again.
There is that. It's that whole thing of getting 6 people or a number of people together to play it, which is the other thing with a legacy game. It feels more stressful with a legacy game than it does with a normal campaign game, because once it's started, that's it, isn't it? It's started, you can't go back.
That's the problem, yeah. And given the trouble that you, me, and John have had just playing Pandemic with the 3 of us, it does suggest that we might struggle, so it's a shame. But I would definitely play it again. So despite having whinged ourselves inside out, I would play it again, because it is fundamentally, I think, quite a good game. It's mechanically simple, easy to grasp, and obviously, having gone through the campaign once, I kind of know the pitfalls.
Mm.
The problem is, of course, I also know what's going to happen. So
yes.
in theory, if I was any good, would potentially maybe alter my strategy slightly, knowing what's coming up in the next couple of games. But thankfully, for everyone who may end up playing a game against me, I'm not that good, so it's not a problem.
Right then, I think we best try to close because we've been jabbering on for an extra half hour here.
I think you're right, yes. I think that's enough of kicking a game while it's down.
Yes. So again, thanks so much for listening. That's been our spoilery chat. We're back in a couple of weeks with more tabletop gaming goodness.
In fact, is it not? Oh, no, it's not. No, the Expo's in...
No, the Expo one will be the episode after next.
There you go. As an incentive to keep listening.
We need something.
We do. Right.
Right.
Good night, folks.
Good night, folks.